Here I have a 2017 Porsche Macan, and it is one of, if not the greatest, SUV crossovers of this generation. This is one of two SUVs made by Porsche. Of course, the Cayenne, and now the Macan. The Cayenne's been out for years, the Macan is a bit smaller than the Cayenne, and personally, I think the Macan looks better. I'm not a big fan of crossovers. I think they're overrated, and they all blend together. Well, that's not the case with the Porsche Macan. I feel like it stands out, and while it has the similar shape and styling to most other crossovers, there's enough to make this different from the rest. It's time to show you how it's different. Let's start off here in the front of the car, and we'll first go over the exterior styling. What makes this so different from every other crossover on the road is the fact that this is a beautiful crossover. I feel like companies just kind of put out a crossover to put out a crossover. Now Porsche, I think they really did try, and it shows. Each line eloquently flows with each other. No line is just there to be a line. There is a purpose for each one. The headlights, which I am a massive fan of, kind of tie in with the other Porsche models, such as the Cayman, at least to some degree. Also in the front, under the headlights, is some more indicators and fog lights. Porsche made these uniquely Porsche, and I'm glad they didn't just cheap out and throw on some fog lights to throw on fog lights. Same thing for the indicators. You could find more indicators on these side mirrors. They also don't look like they were just thrown on last minute. Designers at Porsche rarely ever screw up, and that shows here. They did not screw up. But now it's time to talk about what's under the hood. These cars have three different engine options, either a 2-liter 4-cylinder, 3-liter 6-cylinder, or 3.6-liter 6-cylinder. A lot of different engines, that gives you a lot of different options. And yes, there is an S model, which this isn't, this is the base, and there is other models besides the S. These cars can produce anywhere from 252 horsepower to 440 horsepower. Torque is just as good with 273 pound-feet to 442 pound-feet. MPG is also quite good, 20 city, 25 highway. And these cars are quite heavy, coming in at around 4,000 pounds. But that's enough numbers. It's time to look around the rest of the car. Moving on to the side of the car, the good design choices continue. This car is quite low, I'm just about 5'7", and the car is my height. But don't worry, your headroom is still just fine inside. You still have a good amount of headroom when you're sitting inside because the car is quite low. And this low-profile, sleek design is distinctly Porsche, and one reason this car is better than most other crossovers. That low design also helps with aerodynamics, allowing this car to have a quite good 0 to 60 time. Now the 0 to 60 time on the base is a really good 6.1 seconds, especially for having a 4-cylinder engine and being a crossover. The Macan S just improves upon that tremendously with its 0 to 60 time of only 5 seconds. It's not just designed like a Porsche, it performs like one as well. Porsche kept the design very simple. There's not much hard lines, it's very smooth, very German, and distinctly Porsche. Moving along to the back, we gotta go ahead and listen to the exhaust note, which before we do, I want to mention that there is a sport mode and there is a non-sport mode. You can change this from inside by pressing one button to do all that. exhaust, there's nothing too special about it. I gotta say it's a little disappointing, but it is only a 4-cylinder and it sounds good for a 4-cylinder. Of course, the Macan S sounds a little better because it is a 6-cylinder and it's gonna produce a better sound. But anyway, it's time to talk about the styling of the rear. And oh boy, this is one of my favorite parts. There's so much done right with so little done bad. My favorite thing being the taillights. Look at this. This cool long oval shape with a nice line going through it. It's like nothing else on the road. I also like this spoiler. It's smooth and goes with the roof line, tying in with the back of the car. The third brake light is also mounted up there. Nothing special, just a third brake light. Now there is something I don't think is a great design choice by Porsche or is a poor design choice, but it's right here, this windshield wiper. It could have been hidden, but Porsche decided to put it just out here. It could have been put under the spoiler, which a lot of companies do, but Porsche, for whatever reason, decided not to do this, and that's not a problem. Of course, you have your distinct Porsche badging with the Macan badging under it, which looks awesome. But opening up the rear hatch, there's of course your one way to do it by pressing this button here, actually located on the windshield wiper. That's kind of cool. And that's why I excuse this windshield wiper for not being under or hidden by the spoiler. But what you do is go up to this windshield wiper, press the button, and it opens up for you. Now when it's opened up, there's a lot of space in here. There's also a cover which currently isn't in here, but it will block anyone from looking through your rear window and seeing what you have back here. There is a 12-volt power outlet back here for plugging in whatever, and there's a storage net as well. But you can fold down these middle seats to make it even larger if you want to put bigger items back here. So let's say you have something from like Home Depot or something. Easy, throw it back here. But that's all for the rear, and if you want to close this, just press the button once more. And it closes for you. There's one more way to open the rear, and that's from the key fob. Just press the trunk button, and it opens right up. Lastly, before we move on, closing it, you can also do manually, but it's kind of stiff if you do close it manually. But once you get it close enough to close, it will finish the job for you. And that's all. Last thing before we move on to the interior, I'm on the now passenger side, and I just gotta mention the final things before we move on to the interior. I gotta say, there are some giant rims on this car. In fact, it looks pretty good. On the rims are currently some Pirelli tires. The gas cap is located here on the passenger side, and of course the design is the same as the driver's side. But now it's time to move on to the inside. Sitting on the inside of the Macan, there is a lot to talk about. First off, there's virtually no plastic. It's all either wood, chrome, or this wood/plastic stuff. But it's not bad wood/plastic stuff. It's actually good looking. But besides that, there's a nice infotainment screen. I'm a fan of Porsche's infotainment and technology in their infotainment screen. There's Sirius XM, FM, and AM radio. But besides the normal infotainment screen, there's a second screen next to the gauges. And the two gauges tell you your miles per hour or your RPM. There are paddle shifters here. In fact, these are some of the best paddle shifters I've ever felt. They're just the right balance of stiffness. There's a few steering wheel controls on your steering wheel, which do control your screen in the gauge cluster. There's also two telephone buttons, a back button, and a button you can program to what you want. But on the driver's side door, there's some stuff we should talk about. Of course, some storage, along with your seat presets and your lock and unlock buttons. There's your standard window controls. You can open the rear hatch from your driver's side door, and there's some side mirror controls as well. In the middle of your car, there's the shift lever. Around it are your heated seat controls, your sport button, traction control on or off, off-road button, temperature, and climate controls. There's a beautiful analog clock located above your infotainment screen, and there are plenty of air vents to keep you cool. Above you is one of the best things I've ever seen in any crossover, and that is your panoramic sunroof. That's right, there's a massive sunroof going from the front of your car all the way to the back. And while it doesn't open, there is a shade that covers it that you can open. So you have an open air-like experience, almost like a Tesla. You can open this with the controls on your roof. Of course, there are other controls up there as well. Opening the sunroof is an amazing experience. There is a glove box here on your passenger side, and your passenger side door has just the standard controls that a passenger side door has, such as a window control for their window and lock and unlock buttons. There are seat controls for both the passenger and the driver, and that's basically what you get in the Macan. It's time to show you what's in the back of the Macan. Ah yes, climbing into the back of the Macan is no problem at all. There's plenty of legroom even with these seats moved all the way back. That's what I like to do when I start a review and show you the back of the car. I like to push the seats all the way back so you can see how much legroom there is. And with the seats pushed all the way back, there is a few inches, but of course you could scoot these forward a little bit and there will be much more room. Back here, there's nothing too much. It's pretty simple, but not plain. There are temperature and climate controls for the rear passengers, heated seats, a power outlet with 2 USB slots, your standard window controls on both doors, along with your speakers. This car is equipped with a Bose sound system, but there are 3 seats back here. Of course, the middle seat is a little small, but these seats are quite comfortable while being a little hard because this is a sports car. Being a sports crossover, you gotta remember that it is going to be a little more stiff than comfortable. That is no problem. In the middle seat here, you have something you can pull down for some cup holders. There are 2. Like I mentioned before, there is a panoramic sunroof, and it extends all the way to the back here. You got lights up here and a coat hanger, along with a little grab handle. But that's it for the back, and it's time to tell you my final thoughts about the car. So that is the Porsche Macan, an overall stunning car with matching performance. Taking traits from its Porsche brothers and sisters like the Cayman with its headlights and its taillights matching the design of the Porsche 911 somewhat, it's an overall great looking car. Of course, these cars are now depreciating, and so it could be time for you to get your hands on one. Higher end brands are starting to release their own SUVs as well, such as Lamborghini with their Urus and Ferrari with their upcoming SUV. So far, I've found my taste to be in this Porsche. I feel like the Macan fits in with the Porsche lineup better than some of the other companies with their SUVs. This is a tamer in design, sleeker car, but certainly not tame in performance. While the base might be a little lacking, you can go for a trim higher and get some pretty dang good performance out of an SUV. And trust me, the driving experience is also great. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you all next time for my next review. Goodbye.